checking for me, no one checking on me, so I had to go run up a check. I got the message on me, ain't no flexing on me, my attorney gon' call and collect. Blessings on blessings for me, my successes only made them envious, they got upset. I had to put all their egos in check. I want the money, the pride, respect, and I heard you know so-and-so, you not a threat, cause I really know so-and-so, they like my family, so they go pretend that they cool till they bust at your motherfucking chest. I'm getting gutter, my flow been like butter, my check in the bank, they see the number. All of my haters feel one of two ways, really upset or they show some respect. I can't even think about it, I've been up, so read about it, no beat around it, straight to it, no ring around it. You coming for me, we'll see about it, we'll never see it when I kick my feet up. 100 meters where I run the fee up, and go ka-ching and onomatopoeia. I had to
What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers, and welcome to the main event deep dive for UFC 271. I am here, as always, with the man behind the stats. We have Uncle Weezy. Uncle Weezy, what is up? Are you looking forward to this main event and this card?
Definitely looking forward to this entire card. 15 fights, UFC 271, and here we got a rematch for the middleweight championship of the UFC here. Adesanya, Whittaker. A couple of veterans. We've got a 28-fight sample size of UFC fights combined for these guys to draw from here, to find some edges, to predict the future here. And that's what we try to do with the past data that we have. We try to use it to predict the future. Let's see if we can predict a win for one of these fighters and make some money off of it. Let's
do it. Yeah, we'll talk about the tail of the tape, the experience, the finish stats, the striking stats, the grappling stats, the strength of schedule, the last five, and we'll talk about some betting as well. We'll talk through the chat. Should be a fun little breakdown here. Can't wait to talk about this main event, see what you guys in the chat think as well. First one in the chat, Monk. Shout out to Monk. Him and Lou doing a new show every Friday. I enjoyed watching it last week. Hopefully you guys do that again. Monk saying, what's up, chat? What is up, boys? Banger of a card. Yeah, this card is phenomenal. Can't wait for it. We have Glenn in the chat as well. What's up, folks? Loving Brady's new graphics. Appreciate that. Weezy's dog, as always. There we go. And yeah, Weezy's dog was dog hunting last night on Stat Digger. So I had to see. And I think, yeah, he was picking Roxanne Modafferi for the big upset. There you go. James, great card this week, fellas. Yeah, shout out to James, guy in the Discord. It is a great card indeed. And we have Daruv, hopefully I'm pronouncing that somewhat right. Good to be here. It's good to have you here. Appreciate you, Rob. Love the show. Yeah, Rob's getting put to sleep. See, we'll have to see. Shout out to Ricky in the chat, Daz, Philip, and Isabel. What is up, everybody in the chat? All right. And David's going to check in later, but he's saying a big oi. Yeah, shout out to David. We got SB as well. Thank you all for hanging out. Please leave a like. Also subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. My full card breakdown prediction video. Just recorded that, and it's going to be posted within the next hour. So I say we get into it right away. We'll start with the tail of the tape. And, you know, I think the tail of the tape is a big talking point for me in this fight. Adesanya is 32 years old, 6'4" with an 80-inch reach. Robert Whittaker, 31 years old, 6 foot with a 73-inch reach. So right off the bat, I mean, this jumps off the page to me. Adesanya is going to be much, much bigger. 4-inch height advantage and a 7-inch reach advantage, which I think is very important to mention here. We'll take a look at their last several fights. Both guys are 4-1 in their last five fights. Adesanya, a knockout win against Robert Whittaker, a decision win against Yoel Romero, a decision win or a knockout win against Paulo Costa, a decision loss to Jan Blachowicz, and a decision win against Marvin Vettori. As far as Robert Whittaker, 4-1 in his own right, a split decision win against Yoel Romero, a knockout loss to Adesanya, a decision win to Darren Till, and a decision win against Jared Cannonier, and a decision win against Kelvin Gastelum. So Weezy, yeah, talk about that tail of the tape, because that reach advantage in a fight where I feel like it's going to stay standing for the majority of the time, I feel like that is something to definitely talk about right off the bat.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, we saw this fight already happen once before, and we saw what Robert had to do in order to close that distance. He kind of had to throw caution to the wind a little bit, crash inside on Israel, and try to land his strikes by closing that distance. And boy, he got caught coming in a couple different times. And when he did get finished there late in the second round, it was because he crashed in, landed a good shot, but then Israel kind of caught him with a check right hook. Then he pulled the right hand all the way back, and then he landed it. And that was it. You know, this guy has got to be defensively irresponsible in order to close that distance, Brady. And we saw Israel Adesanya not only in that fight, but with an 80-inch reach in the middleweight division, he's been a master of maintaining distance and punishing his opponents when they do get defensively irresponsible and try to close that distance too fast. and we've seen him do it to Whittaker once already. So yeah, that 7-inch reach advantage, that 4-inch height advantage here, and the fact that he fights out of both stances it really gives him a very eye-popping tail of the tape advantage here.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I mean that reach, like you mentioned, like if you go back and watch that fight, I really didn't like what I saw from the Rob side. He looked uncomfortable at range, and like you said, he was charging in, blitzing forward. It looked like he was trying to take Adesanya's head off, and it wasn't working at all. Obviously, got knocked down at the end of the first round, eventually finishing that fight. So Rob's going to come in. He's going to have to come in here with a different game plan. I mean, the game plan that he had in the first, it can't get any worse. So I'm curious to see the approach that Rob Whittaker does take into this next fight. So yeah, we'll talk about the experience stats a little bit, Weezy. They look on paper pretty similar to me.
Yeah, pretty similar. I mean, we got Whittaker with an advantage just about everywhere, but I mean, obviously both of these guys are very experienced mixed martial artists. They both have more than 20 fights. They both have more than 250 minutes of career cage time. So they're both, they've both been around the block and seen a lot. Whittaker, 6 more pro fights, about 50 to 60 more minutes in the cage, and about 3 more years as a pro, Brady. He's also got 6 more fights at the UFC level, about 50 more minutes in the UFC cage. So definitely more experience here on the Whittaker side, but to say that there's a huge advantage there just wouldn't be true. They're both very experienced. When we look at the finish stats here, we see that Israel Adesanya has never submitted one of his opponents before when he's won a fight. He's won 71% of his 21 wins have come by knockout, and 29% by decision. And then we've got Whittaker here at 61% finish rate in his 23 wins, 39% by knockout, 22% by submission, and that would be 39% as well by decision. And Israel Adesanya only has 1 career loss. That came at 205 pounds to Blachowicz. It was a decision loss. And Whittaker has been finished in 3 of his 5 career losses, twice by knockout, once by submission. So, we got Adesanya, who really is just a pure kickboxer and uses his wrestling just defensively to keep the fight on the feet. And he will knock you out, while Whittaker can finish you in more than one way. But it's also Adesanya who's shown more durability over his career, only losing 1 fight. That's up a weight class, and he won a full 5 rounds and lost that fight. So very durable, while Whittaker's been finishing 3 of his 5 career losses.
Yeah, that chin of Whittaker is always definitely a concern. In the 17 UFC fight, do you know the number of times he's been dropped? I know he's been knocked out 3 times in his career.
So right now we see Whittaker has been dropped 6 times in 17 fights. So that, it's a good amount. And, and he's getting dropped on about 0.75% of all the significant strikes that he absorbs.
Yeah, and 2 of those knockdowns were from Adesanya as well.
That's right. 1 in each round.
I think if there is a finish in this fight, I do think it'll be an Adesanya KO. If Whittaker wins, I'm kind of leaning decision. Do you see another path to victory for Whittaker? Do you think Whittaker can catch him, either submit him?
That's the thing. The both of these guys have, over their 28 fights combined in the UFC, have preferred to keep things standing. Israel Adesanya's fights are taking place standing about 84% of his UFC cage time. And for Whittaker, it's about 82%. So, yeah, I mean, we could see a change in the game plan here. We could see guys try to win minutes with wrestling, but it's just not very likely.
No, I do want to touch on the Blachowicz fight, because there's already a narrative flowing out there that he's going to have to use the Blachowicz game plan, and that was the same narrative for the Vettori fight. Blachowicz laid out the blueprint, but I think that's a big mistake. Even bringing up that fight, it's a fight that was at light heavyweight, which middleweight to light heavyweight is a huge jump. And we talked about on Stat Diggers how Adesanya weighed in under the light heavyweight limit, whereas you have Jan Blachowicz. This guy's huge. He's huge. He probably weighed in, 220, 230 by fight time. Blachowicz is like 6'3". He has a 78-inch reach, where, that's, Rob Whittaker's not 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. He's 6 foot with a 73-inch reach. Adesanya's going to be much bigger here. So it's just hard to imagine, Robert Whittaker coming out here and implementing a Jan Blachowicz game plan. What do you think about the Blachowicz fight? Do you take into account much of that fight, or do you kind of just, throw it out?
I kind of throw it out. I was just looking on my calculator here before we went live, and I said, what would Adesanya's takedown defense be if it weren't for the Blachowicz fight, right? And right now we see it sitting at 80.28%, which is excellent, right? Without the Blachowicz fight, it's 82.5%. So it's not even like Blachowicz was just taking him down every time that he tried. As a matter of fact, I think Blachowicz was something like 4 for 14. So he, even against a guy that was probably 30 to 40 pounds heavier than him on fight day, he still showed over 70% takedown defense against Blachowicz. So and then we have the other side of it, right, Brady? Not only do we have to determine whether Adesanya can keep the fight standing, and he's proven over a large sample size that he can, but we also have to look on the other side and say, what are the odds that, Whittaker is going to shoot for 10 or 15 takedowns in a fight? And frankly, we've got a 17 fight sample size. He's never even come anything close to that in terms of implementing that kind of a game plan, the kind of a game plan that's going to actually help you win enough minutes to win a 5-round fight. It's a 5-round fight. It's not a 3-round fight. So, we've seen Whittaker attempt 29 takedowns in 17 fights. That's less than 2 takedown attempts per fight. And he's at 10 takedowns in 17 fights that he's completed. So, we're talking about, maybe 0.7 takedowns per fight. How many takedowns would Robert Whittaker need against Israel Adesanya, combined with how much top control is he going to need to win this fight?
I'll tell you what, Vettori had 4 and he got 50-45 across the board.
Yeah.
4.
Yeah. And he got like 400 seconds of control time, I believe, in that fight. Almost a third of the fight was controlled by Vettori. So I don't see that narrative. All of a sudden, Robert Whittaker is going to put on a singlet and some wrestling shoes, and he's going to come out here, with the headgear on and, just all of a sudden shoot for 25 takedowns, turn into Nick Maximov. I don't think so, man. He's been fighting this way for a reason, for 17 UFC fights. It's because he's a really damn good kickboxer, very high level, pretty much better than anybody in the division except for Israel Adesanya at this point. So he's going to have to find a way, if he wants to win this fight, to win minutes on the fight, or at least win a couple of big moments on the feet here in order to, either set up his wrestling attacks or even get a knockout of his own. It's not like Robert Whittaker is a bad kickboxer. He's very, very dangerous. It's just that Israel is just on another level with his kickboxing right now. And we can get into these striking stats if you want to kind of get an idea for how good both of these guys are in the striking realm.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I think this fight is primarily going to stay standing because if Rob Whittaker does come out here and he does try to wrestle, which, like you're talking about, 17 UFC fights, only what, 10 takedowns completed?
That's right. 10.
That's not enough. Like, he's only had one fight in the UFC where he's landed more than 2, and that was his last fight against Kelvin Gastelum. So, yeah, if he does it, it's going to be something he's never really done before in his entire career. And on top of that, if he does do it, is he going to have success? It's not like Adesanya has horrible takedown defense. It's actually really good. And on top of that, his get-up game is very, very impressive for being primarily a kickboxer. I was very impressed with what I saw. So, yeah, I kind of see this fight playing out mostly on the feet. And I guess we can get into these striking stats because I think they are the most important.
Absolutely here. And both of these guys are putting on a masterclass with their striking stats here. Israel Adesanya lands 3.94 per minute and only absorbs 2.59, 50% striking accuracy. This guy has landed 10 knockdowns in 11 fights. Definitely, this guy is very, very dangerous on the feet. I think a lot of people think of Adesanya is a point fighter, but point fighters aren't landing knockdowns on 1.5% of the significant strikes that they're landing. That's a power fighter. Wait, let me look at Derek Lewis here and see if he's landing a knockdown on 1.5%. Derek Lewis is at 1.46%. Think about that.
Wow.
You got the guy who's the the UFC knockout king is actually statistically landing less knockdowns per significant strike landed than this guy Adesanya is. So for those of you thinking of Adesanya as a point fighter, I have to remind you that this guy has shown a lot of power and the ability to not only knock out really high-level opponents, but knock them down too. So, and then we look at the defensive responsibility of somebody like Israel Adesanya here, right? 62.34% striking defense. In 11 UFC fights and 1,280 significant strikes attempted against him, he's never once been knocked down. And how many title fights has this guy had? He's fighting the best of the best. His defensive responsibility is absolutely fantastic. It's next level. He uses footwork, backwards footwork, lateral footwork, and nonstop head movement to really be a difficult target to find. Robert Whittaker also landing about 1.34 more significant strikes per minute than he's absorbing, but he's less accurate than Israel Adesanya, sitting at about 42%, and less powerful than Israel on the aggregate here. But he has landed 10 knockdowns, has Robert Whittaker, in 17 UFC fights. So he has got a ton of power in his own right, landing 0.64 knockdowns per 15 minutes and showing very good defensive responsibility in his own right with 61.12% striking defense. However, the biggest difference on the defensive side between them is that Robert Whittaker has been knocked down 6 times in 17 fights, while Israel Adesanya has been knocked down 0 times in 11 fights. So Whittaker is a little more chinny. He's a little less accurate on the aggregate. He's a little less powerful on the aggregate, but he does throw more volume than his opponents do. He outvolumes his opponents at a better rate than Israel Adesanya. But really, just looking at the aggregate numbers, Brady, it does appear that Israel Adesanya kind of has the advantage just about everywhere here.
Yeah, for sure. On top of that, the reach, like 7 inches is no joke. What's up, Nick? I see you in there. I see you in there as well, Daz. Looks like it's a Balaz Brisky saying, no disrespect, Wheezy, but the way you look at the takedowns of Whittaker is nonsense. Nobody was as good of a kickboxer like Izzy, so he did not need to go for as many takedowns, but that might be his only path to victory. What I'll say to that is, in the first fight, he shot 0. He shot 0.
Yeah, I didn't really understand what he was saying there.
He's saying that I think he's saying that he does not go for many takedowns in his career because he has not fought a good kickboxer like Izzy.
Okay, yeah, 0 takedown attempts in the first fight, and that fight went for 9 minutes. So
yeah,
and if you're gonna be trying to wrestle Israel Adesanya here, you want to do it in the center of the cage, because his cage wrestling is really good. When his back's up against the cage, he's extremely difficult to take down. You can take down Izzy in the middle of the cage, and maybe we'll see Whittaker go to that. But like I say, it's hard to push a wrestling heavy game plan for 5 rounds, especially when you're getting 80% of your takedowns stopped. And I just don't see that being a path to victory here for Robert.
Yeah, and Monk bringing up the Whittaker throwing 11.16 strikes per minute, only landing 4.68, which that is a 41% accuracy. That is true. What is up, Clutch? How you doing? Jack saying Bootsy was barking a lot last night on Stat Digger, so maybe there are a lot of dogs barking.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. Jan wrote the blueprint by being the bigger man. Yeah, that's the narrative this week. I'm sure a lot of people are going to say that, but it's light heavyweight fight. This is a middleweight fight, so we'll have to see.
If the blueprint for beating Israel is being a 185-pound man that walks into the cage at 240, then that's the blueprint. I don't know how anyone's going to pull that off, though.
If Rob comes in, fight night, 230, 240.
Looking like Fat Collier, like he just blew up overnight, and it was like, wow, he's huge, man. What happened? He's going to really be able to hold him down, I just don't think we're going to see that kind of body transformation overnight,
Yeah, Rob's going to have to gain 3 inches of height as well, and like 8 inches of reach, and then he can pull off the blueprint there.
Absolutely.
Costa couldn't even do that as well. Smash the leg, I agree. But so yeah, we talked about the tail of the tape, which I think does favor Izzy. Experience, you favor Robert Whittaker there. The striking, you got to favor Izzy, especially with that reach. The grappling, I don't really think it'll matter too much. I think maybe Robert Whittaker will try to mix in takedowns. Let's talk about the strength of schedule a little bit. I'm curious to see what this says here.
Yeah, the metric that I do kind of comes up with the average record of the opponent, that they have on the aggregate here, stripped out for the wins and losses against those opponents. So right now, the average Israel Adesanya opponent in the UFC had a record of 10 wins and 3.55 losses and a 2.82 win to loss ratio. And the average Whittaker opponent, 7.88 wins, 4.35 losses, a 1.81 ratio. So both of these guys are fighting top-notch competition, but there's actually a noticeable bump in the experience level and the quality of the records of Israel Adesanya's opponents. And then when we look at the wins are better for Israel as well. 3.03 ratio to a 1.83 ratio for Whittaker. Average opponent, 10 wins, 3.3 losses for Adesanya. Average win for Whittaker, 7.57 wins, 4.14 losses. And then when we look at the guys that they've lost to, almost identical here, records and experience. I'd give the strength of schedule edge here to Israel Adesanya, actually, quite comfortably, but it's not significant enough just because Robert Whittaker is obviously also fighting pretty much nothing but top-notch competition.
Yeah, they both are fighting very good guys. I think this is interesting. Glenn brings this up. Rob said on Submission Radio that if it was so easy to take down Izzy, everyone would do it, but he is an effing nightmare to take down, and I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And look at the stats. The stats are telling you that he's, his opponents have taken him down 14 times on 71 attempts, and they've been able to control him for 14.3% of his UFC cage time. So we can do a quick little bit of math there and know that that's about 27 minutes of control time on 71 takedown attempts. So, yeah, I mean, even if you attempt to take this guy down, chances are you're going to control him for about 20 to 25 seconds, whether you get it or not. So it's really hard to take this guy down. It's really hard to hold this guy down. And I even remember I did that control time. If we throw out the Blachowicz fight for Adesanya, the control time goes from 12 or 14.3% against down to like 12.1% control time against. So, I mean, like, it's even harder to control him on the aggregate when you throw out that Blachowicz fight that was taking place at a different weight class. So he is absolutely a nightmare to take down. Yes.
Yep, for sure. But yeah, I think we talked about most everything. I'm curious to see the betting odds though, and everybody in the chat. What are you liking from a betting perspective? Are you thinking about taking the dog shot on Rob? You thinking about playing Izzy? You guys liking any props? Type it in the chat, and we'll pull it up and see if anything sticks out. But we're gonna see the line right here, and yeah, we see that Adesanya is minus 260 on Bet Online, and Robert Whittaker is plus 220. There has been no movement on this line at all, at least on Bet Online. It looks like on other books there is some money coming in on Izzy. I see Izzy is minus 300 on some books. I see that he is minus 280 on some books. And going back to their first fight, it looks like it says what date was their first fight, Weezy? Was it was 2021, right?
Late 2000. I'll get it for you right here. I got it in front of me. It was 2019, the first fight between Whittaker and Adesanya. It was October 5th, 2019.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I see it here. So Adesanya, it's actually Whittaker that opens up a favorite at minus 185. Adesanya opens up plus 160, and then Adesanya closes as a slight minus 111 favorite, and Robert Whittaker closes as a slight plus 110 dog. And now we see it, it completely changed, and we now have Izzy as a big favorite. And I know a lot of the times when we do have a rematch and we look at the first fight and it is line close, like the Conor fight, for example. In the Conor fight, in the first fight, he was a huge favorite, and then it kind of flipped. Dustin was now the favorite in the second fight, in the third fight, and in the second fight, my bad. But this is a fight where in that first fight, I think we learned a lot. So I kind of get why the line's where it's at. I think I saw a lot of. I think I saw all I need to see, really.
Yeah, I saw a lot there. I mean, I think that Whittaker could potentially win some minutes in the clinch, could potentially get some takedowns and win some minutes there. But this is a 25-minute fight. You know, if you're thinking that Whittaker is going to win this with a grappling heavy game plan, you have to kind of ask yourself, how many minutes does that mean he needs to win? How many rounds does he need to get takedowns in? And when have we seen that over a 17-fight sample size in his past competition? Now, there potentially we could see Jacob Malkoun and Robert Whittaker come in on Saturday and just put on an absolute wrestling clinic in both of their fights. And we could say, oh my God, you can teach an old dog new tricks, you know, and here we are 20 some odd fights into Whittaker's career here. This will be his 29th professional fight, and we might see him turn into a wrestler. But we also need to know, you know, when you go back and you watch the first fight, Whittaker was landing some nice shots as well, but he never really had Israel phased, I would say. Israel was still using footwork and a bunch of head movement and was catching him coming in pretty effectively. Knocked him down twice in 9 minutes. I just don't know where Whittaker is going to find that big combination to rock Adesanya on the feet and change the you know, trajectory of this fight. It's hard to picture, but Robert Whittaker is no slouch, and it could certainly happen. And Bootsy's been freaking out, so he might think that Whittaker's got a shot here.
He definitely, it sounds like it, yeah.
He's got his work cut out for him, Brady. There's no question about it, man. And the bookies kind of agree.
Yep, definitely. Adesanya by unanimous decision. Rob saying Izzy by decision for guys. Daz saying Izzy got the bullet time. Nick saying is all in on Whittaker. Yeah, I do believe that Nick is from around there. So, yeah, Nick is going with the hometown guy in a way. Bonquiqui 4-5 decision for Izzy, I'd imagine. Jeff saying Izzy by decision is what I got. I would take Izzy by 3rd, 4th, or 5th round stoppage. Okay, that could be something interesting we could look at. Izzy by TKO. Monk saying Izzy by decision plus 177 earlier. I love that. James on the Izzy decision plus 170. Gunny parlaying Izzy. Rob, the money line is wide for me. Monk saying parlay with King Casey for a guarantee. I will not be doing that, Monk, but I think it does hit if you do so. Grateful saying fight goes to decision. We'll talk about that line as well. Jeff saying, I don't know if I can lay money on Rob over Izzy. That's a tough matchup. Hopefully it's going to be a banger of a fight. I can almost guarantee that it'll be a banger for sure. Daz saying, it took Rob by decision plus 450. I think if Rob wins, right, Weezy, do you think I think it's by decision.
Adesanya's never been finished, you know, so yeah, it's really kind of hard to picture him winning any other way but decision. I mean, maybe he submits him if he does get him down, but I mean, how many submissions does Whittaker have on his record? 22% of his wins, so that'd be 5 career wins by submission in 23 wins. So yeah, probably not likely that he gets a submission. Probably not likely that he's knocking out one of the greatest strikers to ever be in the middleweight division here, not named Anderson Silva, but there's a lot of parallels between the way that Adesanya fights and Silva fought. Yeah, it's Whittaker by decision is not a bad way to go about it. And that's kind of juicy.
Yeah, let's take a look at these other props. So I hear some people, you know, on that fight goes to decision. The fight goes to decision minus 106 on FanDuel, minus 125 on BetOnline. The fight doesn't go to decision, minus 105 on BetOnline, minus 128 on FanDuel. The over-under looks to be set at 3.5 rounds on most books. The over 3.5 rounds, minus 134. The under 3.5 rounds, plus 100. Over 4.5 rounds on BetOnline, minus 140. Under 4.5 rounds, plus 110. I think this does get extended. I know the first fight ended, you know, quite early, but I think this does go over at least 3.5 rounds. I think if there is a finish, it might come late, maybe that 4-5, or even goes to decision. Any thoughts on the fight goes or doesn't go, or no strong lean there?
You know what will be a cheeky bet for this one too, and I talked about this one on Stat Diggers for another fight, for the Lewis Tuivasa fight, but fight ends in KO. Kind of feels like I'd rather play that than the fight doesn't go to decision, because both of these guys are so dangerous with the way they set up their head kicks. And somebody just said it in there. Somebody just said Adesanya may actually score a head kick KO, and if Whittaker gets it, it's going to be the same way, because Whittaker's got that sweet 1-2 head kick combination that he throws with that rear right leg, man. And I mean, it's just vicious. He got Jacare with it. He got Brunson with it. And you never know. He might be able to get Adesanya with it, but Adesanya does the exact same things with those crazy head kick setups that he can set up from either leg, from either stance, switch kick or rear leg kick. Man, both of these guys are very dangerous. Fight ends by KO would be something I would be looking at as a nice little prop that might be kind of fat this week.
Fight ends in KO is plus 105 on FanDuel. So it's not much of it. It's not much of a difference at all. I think the fight.
I was going to say that's not. Yeah, damn. I feel like that they're not juice. Yeah, fight doesn't go is plus 100, and those guys the best they can do is plus 105.
Yeah,
come on, man.
That's not
FanDuel. What the hell, dude? Really? Plus 105. You're giving us that? That's come on, man.
Yeah, that's not cool. That's
not cool at all, dude. Not cool.
It wouldn't be worth it at that point.
No, I agreed. Absolutely. There's no juice there. So, the time props aren't sticking out to me one way or another, dude.
Yeah, I feel it. I feel it. No strongly for me as well. But let's take a look at some other props here. Adesanya by KO plus 175. Whittaker by KO plus 650. This is on FanDuel as well. I don't think either fighter is going to get a sub, but Whittaker by sub plus 1,200. Adesanya by decision is the same price as the KO plus 175, and Whittaker by decision actually just got better on FanDuel. It's now plus 460. Any of those stick out to you?
Whittaker by decision could be a cheeky bet. But God damn, Jesus, the only thing that's sticking out is I really do think Israel Adesanya is elite right now, and the way that he fights really smart for what his skill set is, and I don't see Whittaker changing his stripes enough in order to bring the kind of game plan that's going to give Israel any problems here. I don't want to get cheeky trying to pick Adesanya inside the distance or Adesanya by decision. So I feel like Israel as a parlay piece is just the only thing that's sticking out to me right now, Brady.
Yeah, I feel it. I was kind of feeling the 4-5 decision, which I don't know what that is. But I bet you could improve the price tag there. But my only concern would be what happens if he finishes Rob Whittaker like early on. So yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I think the money line would be best. I'm kind of sitting back and waiting to see where this goes. I'm hoping money comes in on Whittaker. And like I said, this line on BetOnline has been open for since the 1st of January, I think. Yeah, it's been open for over a month and hasn't moved at all. That's weird. So we'll have to see where it goes.
Yeah, because, when you see these rematches, it kind of gets trenched in pretty good. We've seen them fight once before, and then we've got this huge sample sites of fights to draw on at the UFC level for both of them. Usually, those lines, they won't move until fight week, until we kind of hear who's on who, and then until people really start getting their money put down. But yeah, I like Adesanya, and I think I might be parlaying him this week. Maybe throwing him in a parlay with one Jeremiah Wells.
Let's go against the Blood Diamond.
Yeah, against Adesanya's buddy. So I don't feel good about that. It's like I'm going for Adesanya in City Kickboxing in one, and then I'm betting against him in the other. I don't know if I like that, but I don't like the matchup for Blood Diamond. He's going to have to show me a lot for me to think that he can beat the well-rounded skill set of the Philly boy and Renzo Gracie Philly guy in Wells here. So yeah, that's something I'm looking at. Parlay Adesanya with something here.
Yeah, I mean, if I was doing a parlay this week, Adesanya would be one of those guys. Olberg, who's also an Adesanya City Kickboxing guy. I don't hate that parlay, but I think I might just play Izzy straight. I'm gonna sit back and wait on the line. Though I'm hoping it comes down just a tad, because I'll play it at minus 250, minus 260, but I'm just gonna sit back and be patient this week. So yeah, quick final thoughts for each of us, and we'll kind of head out of here. For me, final thoughts. I think it's just a tough match for Robert Whittaker. I know the line in the first fight was much, much closer. Izzy's slight favorite, but we saw that Rob Whittaker really struggled to close range, close the distance. We are in the bigger cage, which is going to 100% favor Izzy here. I just don't see what he's going to do different in this fight. Is he going to try to wrestle? If he does, for one, we haven't seen him do that much at all in his career. Only 10 takedowns landed in 17 UFC fights. Only one fight in the UFC where he's landed more than 2 takedowns in his very last fight against Kelvin Gastelum. And even if he tries to go Boots, you're scaring me. Even if he tries to go for takedowns here, Adesanya, 80% takedown defense. Adesanya, phenomenal get-up game. I think this fight primarily does play on the feet. I worry about Robert Whittaker's chin. Dropped several times in the UFC. Adesanya's never been dropped. I think Adesanya is more durable. I think he's a better striker. I think that 7-inch reach is huge in this fight. The height advantage as well. I really like Adesanya in this fight. In terms of best bet, it probably would just be that money line. I think decision for Adesanya, but it would not shock me if he was able to knock out Whittaker here as well. So not really loving any of the props for this fight, but I do like the Adesanya side quite a bit this week. Wheezy, what are your final thoughts for this fight? And then one bet that you don't mind for it as well.
Yeah, I think the bet that I like is just parlaying Adesanya with somebody else that you like on this card, and that should not be hard. Kyler Phillips -400, Casey O'Neill almost -400, Alex Perez, Ronnie Lawrence, Ulberg. If you like Cannonier, or if you anybody else that you think has got a really good chance to win this week, you can parlay with Adesanya and not have to put up 2.6 or 2.8 units to win one. You can parlay him with one other fighter and get it pretty close to even money. I think that's the most responsible bet here. And going once again back to that tail of the tape, switch stance fighter with a 7-inch reach advantage and a 4-inch height advantage, man. It's a lot to ask to make up that reach disadvantage when your opponent is the elite striker in the division right now. And then we know that he has elite takedown defense as a middleweight as well, and we just haven't seen enough wrestling out of Whittaker. I think it's going to be the puncher's chance for Whittaker, and a puncher's chance against a guy who's never been knocked down in 11 UFC fights. Even though Bootsy disagrees vehemently, I am going confidently here with Israel Adesanya, and I'm gonna have a talk with my dog.
Your
How
dog
could don't you disrespect me on the air ever again?
Your dog did call Malcolm Gordon last week. So
that was weird, man. He got that right, but then at least, thank God, he got Rowe and Almeida wrong. Otherwise, I would have been crying. There would have been a dog for sale sign outside the house, man. I'd be like, no.
It's always scary going against Bootsy, but Bootsy,
man.
I hope he's wrong for sure. But yeah, guys, that's about it. Thank y'all for hanging out here. Fun main event to talk through, fun card as well. My prediction video is going to be posted in 7 minutes, so be sure to check that out. Wheezy, let the people know where they can find you, what you have going on throughout the week. Are you going live tonight?
Yeah, going to go live tonight and do a balls deep breakdown, but maybe you guys in the chat can help me out. What would you like to see a balls deep breakdown on? Which fight besides the main event here? Is there anything that's sticking out to you guys that you'd like to see me break down from nose to toes, from east to west, and really kind of go balls deep into all the stats? I'll do that tonight, 10 o'clock Central on my channel. I'll also do Just the Tip on my channel, Uncle Wheezy, tomorrow night, 10 o'clock Central Time. We'll break down all 15 fights on this UFC 271 card from a statistical standpoint, and I'll finish, as I always do on Just the Tip, with Uncle Wheezy's ass shaving of the week. And then Wednesday, again, on Pub Sports Radio, we'll be doing the DraftKings DFS show with you and Monk and Luke. And Wednesday night, I'll do another Balls Deep breakdown on my channel for whatever fights you guys want to see me break down. Cannonier and Brunson I see in there, and the Hernandez fight would be. I was looking at Hernandez, Moicano, and Cannonier Brunson for sure. You guys can let me know, but and you want to see Monica versus, or not Monica versus Hernandez, but Moicano versus Hernandez. All right, cool. Yeah, maybe I'm going to do one of those two fights for sure. So thank you guys for spending the evening with us so far. I'm going to go watch the Die Hard MMA podcast over on Pub Sports Radio after this, Brady. And it's always great breaking down these main events with you on your channel, brother.
Yeah, for sure. Weezy, thanks for always coming on. Yeah, I think that Hernandez-Moicano fight's a very intriguing one. Another intriguing one I saw in the chat as well, the Cannonier-Brunson, that would be a good one to do. So yeah, go check out Uncle Wheezy. He'll be going live tonight, going balls deep into one of those matchups. So that should be fun. I'm always going to be there checking out Wheezy, always a good time. But yeah, guys, leave a like, subscribe. Appreciate you guys hanging out. Again, my full card prediction video is going to be posted shortly here. Follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. Best of luck. We'll see you on Friday for the post weigh-in show, and then also Saturday, 1 hour prior to the prelims for best bet. Thank you all for hanging out. Grateful Dude, Gunny, Rob, Nick, Jack Attack, all you guys, Monk. uncertainty. Matt, appreciate y'all. Leave a like, subscribe. See you guys. Good luck.